as small business owners, one of the biggest challenges we have is that often, especially in the startup stages of our business, we don't always have the money or the budget to be able to spend on marketing. So what that does, it forces us to be very creative. It forces us to be creative and to come up with ways of marketing that have a direct impact and are very, very effective. So my objective this morning is to share with you how you and I can market our products and services on a budget. Doesn't matter what our business is. And I think that is the key to understand. It doesn't matter what your business is, marketing is important. So before we start marketing, I'm going to go through some really important marketing guidelines. And I think these are basic, but if you follow them, I believe you're going to become a better marketer, because ultimately that's what it's about. In the startup stages of our business, we are our own marketers. We start off by doing most of our own marketing. As our businesses grow, and hopefully your business will grow, and as our businesses grow, what happens is that we have more money than time. In the startup stages of our business, we have more time than money. And maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I know when I first started my business, that is exactly how it was. I had much more time than I had money. And so what I had to learn to do, and most businesses that I've worked with have had to learn to do, is how to make sure that they use their time very effectively. Now, to make marketing effective, there are a couple of really simple things that you need to do. The first one, and I know some of you are not going to agree with me on this initially, but I want you to not judge some of the things I'm saying, but just to reflect on what I'm trying to tell you so that you can adapt it to your business. So what happens is when we start out our business, we try and sell to whoever will buy our stuff. But the key to building a successful business going forward is not to try and market to everybody. That doesn't mean you don't sell to everybody, but it's not to try and market to everybody, because that becomes too expensive. So one of the things you've got to work on as early as possible, and this may not happen in the startup stage. It may take a year or two or even 3 before you start realizing who your ideal target market is. And once you can identify your ideal target market, this really helps. And the reason this really helps is because now you can create marketing materials specifically for your target market. So let's use an example. A very one that I don't like using, but I'll use anyway because all of us can relate to it. If you at any time go into a McDonald's store, the one thing you'll notice immediately is the colors. So the colors are very bright. They, the primary colors. And the reason they do that is that they are targeting the younger demographic. They start off as kids, and then throughout their lives, they consume McDonald's burgers. So there's an example of who their target market is. But anybody can walk into a McDonald's and buy a burger, but the target market specifically is young people. The second thing I believe to make our marketing more effective, because that's the objective here, is we've got to develop a marketing plan. So what I'm going to do in this session this morning is I'm going to show you how to develop a marketing plan for your business. A really simple and effective marketing plan that works for you. And I think that is the key, because what happens, just like when we discussed business plans on Tuesday, for some of us, it can be a little bit overwhelming. It can be a little bit overwhelming because somebody says you need to write a business plan or you need to create a marketing plan or whatever it is. And we start getting a bit anxious because we think, well, I'm not a good writer, or I'm not good at doing those type of things. And that's a common thing that we say, and a common thing that I say anyway, when it's something that I don't like doing. So developing a marketing plan, I believe, is key to building a successful business. And the reason is it gives us a bit of structure. For those of us that are business owners already, we'll tell you that it gets busy. It gets really, really busy. And the reason is because you're doing everything. You're doing marketing, you're doing sales, you're doing deliveries. If you've got an e-commerce store, you're shipping, you're doing all of these things. So it can get a little bit overwhelming. So what happens is when you create a marketing plan, it gives you a bit of structure. So I'm going to show you a really simple template that I encourage all of you to use going forward. These templates will be available to you through your small business center. So Tori or Janelle or Christine or somebody will send them to you once you request them. But I'm going to give you a marketing plan and I'll go through it. The third thing is we've got to allocate a marketing budget. And early on, you heard me saying in the startup stages of a business, we don't have so much money, we have a lot of time. So in these startup stages, I believe that the key is going to be allocating time. So allocating time to go and visit clients one-on-one, allocating time to phone clients, allocating time to do social media posts, to send out email campaigns. All of those things are key and very, very important in building a successful business. So you've got to be allocating a marketing budget. Once your business starts growing, and it will grow, once your business starts growing, or for those of us that are in business already, we should be spending a percentage of our sales on marketing. And I'm going to give you an idea in the session this morning what percentage you should be spending. So if you're a retailer, how much you should be spending, and if you're a service business, how much you should be spending. Because those are the two key. Actually, most small businesses that are starting now across Canada are service-based businesses. So if you're a service-based business, your marketing budget will probably be a little bit higher than if you're a retailer. And the reason that is because your profit margins are often higher. The fourth thing is you need to be consistent. And I think that is the key to building a successful business. I want you to understand that customers like consistency, and especially Canadians. I know this is a bit of a stereotype, but especially Canadians. Think of where we buy our coffee. On a regular basis, we'll go to our local Tim Hortons, and that's where we buy our coffee. And why do we do that? If any of you are coffee connoisseurs on this webinar, you'll be able to tell me it is not the perfect cup of coffee, but you know what? It's consistent. And that is the key. Customers like consistency. So as a small business owner, here's some really good advice, is ensure that your service is consistent. Ensure that your offerings are consistent. Ensure that your marketing is consistent. All of these things are the key to building a successful business. What you don't want is I come into your store on Monday and the service is absolutely brilliant. And then I come into your store on Wednesday and you're not there and the service is not good. Or, for example, if you run a service business, you send somebody to come and do my landscaping, cutting my grass and things like that. And the one week it's absolutely brilliant. And then the next week it's not so good. Or the person is not so friendly or not so nice to me or whatever it is. And these are all key things, really important things that influence your marketing and influence your brand, because you want to be known for something. And I said that on Tuesday, and I emphasized the importance of being good at something, and that's one of the things you've got to be doing. So you've got to be consistent. And the next thing you've got to do is measure the effectiveness of all of your marketing. And I know for some of us, this is quite a challenging statement. Andrew, when you say to me, I must measure the effectiveness of all my marketing, what do you actually mean? How do I do that? And let me give you a very, very simple method to do that. And I'm going to explain this in a bit of detail a little bit later on when it comes to different ways we're going to market our business. But one of the simplest ways to measure the effectiveness of your marketing is when a client comes into your store, or when a client phones your business, or when a client visits your e-commerce store or whatever it is, you ask them a really simple question. You say to them, where did you hear about us? That is one of the most important questions any one of us can ask. And the reason we ask this question is because we really want to understand what is working and what is not working. And when we identify what is working, we want to keep doing that over and over again. So we want to keep doing that over and over again so that we can work out what's working better. For example, let's say you realize that a lot of your customers are coming through referrals. You know, a friend told me about it, or whatever it is. Then what you would do is you would come up with a referral program. Let's use another example. Let's say people say, oh no, we saw your flyers. I picked up your flyer at the local supermarket, and that's how I found out about you. So then you will, start using flyers more and more. So these are the type of things you want to be thinking about. You almost want to be strategic as a small business owner. So you want to measure the effectiveness of all of your marketing. Obviously, when it comes to email or Facebook advertising or anything like that, it becomes much easier. But what I want you to understand is even the traditional, very, very simple ways of marketing are very effective. And the last thing is we need to be patient. And I want you to understand, and I said this on Tuesday, I think it's worth repeating. When people say that person is an overnight success, you know what? I don't know if there are any overnight successes. It takes a lot of time. It takes time to get your name out there. It takes time to build a brand. It takes time for people to know about you. And this is quite challenging. It really is, because a lot of us, including myself, I'm very, very impatient. So I'm an impatient person. So I've got to understand that if I want to grow a brand, patience is an important thing. And it takes time to build a brand. And you've got to understand that as a business owner. It's going to take you a bit of time to get established out there. For those of us that are existing businesses, we can relate to that. We can relate to that because in the beginning, it is a struggle. And I want you to understand that it's not going to be easy. So these are the basic marketing guidelines. Know who your target market is or your ideal client for your product or service. Develop a marketing plan, a really simple one-page marketing plan. Allocate marketing budget, be consistent, and measure. I believe if you have these basic rules and stick to them, I think it's going to really help you. So let me show you a really simple one-page marketing plan that I created. Actually, I've just updated this marketing plan, and you're the first group that I'm showing it to, and it's very, very simple. And I think that's the part you've got to understand. Simplicity is the key. I'm a business owner. I do not have lots of time to work on fancy plans and things like that. I want something that is simple and effective. So what I would do if I was you, I would write these headings maybe down on a piece of paper. You don't have to do it in this block format like this. It just makes it easier for us to see on the screen. And then I would go through the different sections. So the first one here is clear marketing objectives. And yeah, the more specific you are, the better it is. And for example, you might say, over the next 12 months, I want to do $30,000 of revenue. I want to grow the traffic to our website from 500 visitors a month to 800 visitors a month. I want to grow the amount of people following us on Instagram from 500 to 1,000 or whatever it is. And it doesn't matter, because it really depends on your business, what these marketing objectives are going to be. And for all of us, I think they're going to be different. So in the beginning, it is, I think some of these exercises in the beginning are quite challenging, especially if you're a new business owner. But as you get into it more and more, it becomes much easier. So be very, very specific. Actually, let me tell you a great story. Well, I think it's a great story. About 10 years ago, I used to run my business, a biz launch, with a partner. I started off 18 years ago in this business with very little money and no experience. I had just moved to Canada, and it's really difficult. If any of you've ever started a business from scratch, it's very, very difficult. If you've started a business from scratch, arriving in a new country, I think it's even more difficult. Anyway, so what I did in the beginning is I partnered. I partnered with a guy, let's call him James, and we did really, really well. We did really well. And he was a sales guy. He was a sales guy, and he was really good at getting PR. But eventually what happened was he got to a stage that I don't know if he was tired of the business, maybe he was tired of me, but decided that, you know what, I want to be bought out. So what I did is I purchased his shares in BizLaunch, and now own 100% of the shares, which is the way some of us may grow our business. That could be an opportunity for you, actually. You may decide to buy out one of your competitors or to buy another business. Anyway, so I bought his shares, and then I employed a new marketing lady. Her name was Heather, a great young woman. She started working with me 10 hours a week, then 20 hours a week, and then full time. Actually, that's a really good strategy for any one of you on this webinar is if you want to employ a marketing person, start them off with a few hours a week. And then if you really like what they do, then maybe add hours onto that. Anyway, so whenever I get marketing people to work for me, the first thing I ask them to do is to create a marketing plan. And that is exactly what I asked Heather to do. I said to Heather, what I want you to do is I want you to create a marketing plan for BizLaunch. And then she said to me, she said, can you tell me who of our customers can I contact for them to give us a testimonial and vouch for us? And I said, I actually don't know. And I think that's a big problem, a big, big problem. And the reason I didn't know wasn't that I thought my customers weren't happy, is that my partner was interacting with the clients all the time. So I was responsible for presenting the seminars and the webinars, but I wasn't interacting with the clients, and he was, which was a big, big problem. And one of the challenges I had with him is that he used to overpromise and underdeliver. He'd promise the world to customers, and that really frustrated me. Actually, it created a lot of anxiety for me, and eventually when he decided to leave BizLaunch, I was quite happy from that perspective, because I'm not a good liar, let me be honest, and I'm going to tell you that you don't need to lie. So what happened was Heather and I decided there and then that one of our marketing objectives for the next 12 months was to improve our customer service to a stage where any one of our customers would be a reference for us. And I think that is the key. The key is your best testimonials are going to be your customers. And you've got to understand this. Don't forget this, that your best testimonials are going to be your customers. So eventually, by the end of that year, which is a wonderful thing that happened, is when new customers used to contact us, we'd say, you can contact any one of our customers for a reference. And that is exactly where you want to get to. So here's the point, is every one of us will have our own marketing objectives. Once you've created marketing objectives for 12 months, what I recommend you do is you update them every 90 days. So that's what I do. So a really simple one-page document that I update on a regular basis. The next thing you want to do is you want to write down who your ideal target customers are. And the really interesting thing that has happened in my case, in all of the businesses that I've run over the years, is that your customer changes over time. And that depends on a couple of factors. One of them is, as the economy changes, as the economy evolves, as technology evolves and changes, and as you develop as a business owner. So we've had quite an interesting deviation along the way of who our target market is. So keep that in mind, that this changes as your business grows and develops. And so this is something you need to be looking at all the time. For some of you, it's going to stay the same. For some of you, it's going to evolve. The third thing is you want to identify, and I spoke about this on Tuesday, is you want to identify your main competitors. And then what you want to do is you want to look at their strengths and you want to look at their weaknesses. And what you want to try and do is what they're doing really well, you want to also do, and you want to capitalize on their weaknesses. But it's really, really important, and I want you to understand this, that at least every 90 days, that you are going to do some research on your competitors, at least every 90 days. Obviously, if you can do it more often, I know when we were retailers, I was a retailer for 11 years. When we were in retail, we do it more often. And the reason we do it more often is you needed to check their prices on a regular basis and things like that. So regularly do this, you and your staff. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, and some people aren't, I know, they've said to me they don't feel comfortable checking out their competitors. I can relate to that. So what you do in that case is you then get maybe a student or somebody else that'll go and do it for you. The fourth thing you want to focus on, and this again maybe doesn't change too often, is your value proposition. Why should people do business with you rather than your competitors? And in a lot of our businesses, it's very, very challenging. I'll be honest with you, I struggle sometimes with this part. But really, most times, it's really the simple stuff. Like we show up on time, we'll finish projects on time, we'll give you a great product or service. That is really what our value proposition is. And again, also, we experts in the field, we entrepreneurs trained. So those are the type of things you want to think about. And obviously, I'm using the example of my business, but I want you to think about your business. What differentiates you? And I'm going to give you some words that you can use a little bit later on that typically customers are looking for. Because remember, one of the things you're going to be very careful of is often small business owners, when I ask them what makes you unique, they'll say, well, our service is very good. Our products are very, very good. And our prices are fair. Well, those are givens. That is not a competitive advantage. We'll see it on trucks or businesses on their websites, service excellence. What does that even mean? Everybody says that. Your service should be excellent. So what you want to do is you want to find things that make you different, little things that customers look for. And I'm going to give you examples of that. The fifth thing are, what marketing tools are you going to use? Let me just say something to you. I'm going to share a whole lot of ideas with you this morning. But the key is that you want to find out what works for you. That is the key. Maybe you go to a webinar, to a seminar, and somebody says, well, Facebook is the thing you should be using. Or somebody else, you go and they say, no, it's TikTok you should be using. Or somebody says, no, whatever. Do what works for you. And I think that is the key. There are no rules here. The objective here is to find what works and to do that over and over again. I think that is the key. The key to building a successful business is to find what works. The sixth thing is your customer service standard. What are you comfortable with? And I think this is really, really important. Do you know what this is? You've got to set the standard. The problem we've got, I think, often in small business is we'll employ somebody and we'll say to them, you know what, customer service is very, very important in our business. The problem with that statement is, how do we measure? So what I recommend you do, and I think this is one of the keys to success going forward in small business, is that we offer absolutely brilliant service. How do we do this? We train our employees. That's what we do. We train our employees better than anybody else. And we give them guidelines. We give them guidelines so they have a very clear idea. The seventh thing is, what is your follow-up strategy? And this is very, very important that you have a follow-up strategy. So when somebody phones you to ask for a quote for agricultural services or marine services or whatever business you're in, one of the things you want to make sure is that you call them back. I have seen this many times, and I mentioned this, I believe, on Tuesday, is that people just don't follow up. And if you don't follow up, you don't get the business. The last section here is, what is your marketing budget and how are you going to measure success? And I think if you use a very, very simple template like this, something that doesn't take too much effort, doesn't take too much work, I believe is going to help you improve your marketing. I really believe that. I know in our case, it's helped me as a business owner to improve my marketing because it's simple, and I like simple. Let me give you an example. When I say you want to simplify things and you want to do things really simple, one of the challenges we have in small business is sometimes we complicate things. You know, you'll go into a small business owner and they don't accept credit cards, or they don't accept debit cards, or they don't have an e-commerce website, or whatever it is. You know, nowadays, most of these things are not that complicated for us. You know, they're not that expensive. You know, years ago, I remember that, you know, just having a website was an absolute nightmare. Just to maintain the thing used to cost us thousands of dollars every month. Not anymore. You know, it's really a minuscule expense nowadays. So you've got to look at these things. You want to keep things simple. And some of the brands that I think of that do a really good job, I don't even subscribe to, example, Spotify, but I see a lot of people using it, and they've simplified the process of getting music and choosing music and all that type of thing. I think that's why they're successful. Another example is Google. I think Google thrives on simplicity. Even their logo, their branding is very, very simple. If you've ever ordered a product from Amazon, not that I'm encouraging it, rather buy from local small business than buy from Amazon, but learn from them, or Costco. These are some of these businesses that have done really well. Here's the thing I want you to understand is I don't like referencing large companies on my webinars, but the key here is that all of these started as small businesses. They were small businesses one time. And what they did is, as they went along, they perfected a lot of what they do. So that's what they did. The other thing that I would recommend you do, especially those of us that are existing businesses, but those of us that are in the startup stage, I would also think about this. So there's a principle out there, or sometimes people call it a law or theory or whatever it is, Pareto's principle. And I believe in this 100%. Actually, I've been involved in the franchising industry for many years, and in the restaurant businesses and things like that. And I'll often say that 80% of businesses are doing okay, but only 20% of businesses are doing really well. And here's the thing you want to do. You want to become one of those 20% that generate 80% of the revenue. As a business owner, especially once you're up and running, what you want to try and do is to find that 20% of your customers that generate 80% of your revenue. And this doesn't work out for everybody, but it works out for a lot of us. I remember even when I was a retailer, I remember that. And I remember when I was a retailer, we used to have these regulars. We used to have these regulars that used to come into our business. And it was really, really interesting is that, they used to generate most of the revenue. So most of the revenue that we generated were from these 20% of customers. So understand that this is a very, very common thing, to have a business where 80% of your profits come from 20% of your business. So keep that in mind. Understand the value of that. And you as a business owner, when you do your research, you can find out a lot of these things. You can find out, what is working and what is not working, which is exactly what you want to do. So understand the value of this. It is very, very effective. So what you want to do is make sure that you go through your database, and you want to choose exactly who your main customers are. And then here's my tip, is focus on your most important customers. Focus on your most important customers. And that's exactly what you want to be doing, is you want to focus on your most important customers. And it's a really interesting thing. You want to focus on the 20% that generate 80% of your revenue. And I promise you, some of you are going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked that this theory works, and it's an amazing thing. So understand the value of that. Focus on the 20%. The other thing that I want you to do is I want you to understand your customer. Understand your customer, and then this will really help. So this will really help you to really become a better business owner, because getting in the mind of your customers is going to be a brilliant way of growing your business. And I want you to understand that. It is the key to building a successful business. It really is the key to building a successful business. So understand the value of that. And how do we get to understand our customers? One of the first things we can look at, and this is a big word. I don't like using big words, but this is a big word that all of us need to understand. We really need to understand this word. It is psychographics. So understand what this is. Psychographics is understanding what motivates the customer to make a buying decision. That's really what you want to do, is you want to work out what motivates the customer to make a buying decision. And these are things that'll influence the customer. These are things that will directly influence the customer. Firstly, the customer will be concerned with health and appearance. So that could be something that is a key criteria. Secondly, they may want a healthy lifestyle. And think of it, if you're in the food business, this will work very, very effectively for you. This will work very, very effectively for you. And this is a wonderful thing. It'll work very effectively for you because you've got a really good understanding of customers. So, concerned with health and appearance, they want a healthy lifestyle but don't have much time. They enjoy going online in the evenings and spend time on Facebook and Instagram. They favor quality over price, and they are career focused. And I think this is the key, that you understand this. It's key that you understand this as a business owner, that the more you understand your customer, the better it is. The more you understand your customer, the better it is. And you've really got to understand this. You've really, really got to understand this. They favor quality over price. That's something that is key. I know in my business, for example, quality is far more important than price. Actually, if it was only based on price, we wouldn't still be in business, because that is one of our key things. They are career focused, but value time with their family. And for some of you, this sounds like you, and they spend time with your friend. So here's what I'd recommend you do. And again, this is sometimes quite challenging in the beginning to do, because what I'm asking you to do is to come up with a profile of your ideal customer, to really get in their head and understand what motivates them, understand what influences their decisions. And that's what you want to be doing. So we call that a buyer persona. So it's a big word again, but it's something that you can work on. You know, maybe use a whiteboard or a wall or whatever it is, and start writing down things that are important for your customer. Or you could look at their demographics. You might say, well, we believe our customers are high income people in our region that are 55 to 64. Hopefully, people by that stage in their lives have got some income. They are double income families, okay? They maybe drive fancier cars, and that may not be a criteria, but for you it may be. They eat organic food, or you could say a vegan food or healthy food or whatever it is. They cook only on weekends, and I can imagine affluent people would do this. They only eat on healthy. I mean, they only eat, cook on weekends. They eat out regularly, and they're healthy and fit. So this is an example. So what I recommend you do is you go through the same exercise. And for some of us, we'll have one buyer persona. But for others, we may have a few buyer personas, and that's okay. But you've got to understand that the more you have, the more complicated it gets. And I think that's the key, is the more you have, the more complicated it gets. So understand the value of this is that you as a business owner, you want to try and really understand your customers. You want to try and really understand your customers. So, and the more you understand, the better, the easier it is to market. Just think of it. Let's say you were using somebody to do your marketing. Let's say you were using somebody to do your marketing. You would then contact them and say, listen, these are my ideal customers. Think of it, if anybody's ever done any Facebook advertising or any Google advertising, this is quite a key thing that you need to understand this. For those of you that are selling business to business, you can go through the same exercise. I know we do it in our business. We have clients that we sell to. There are certain clients we work with and certain we don't. That doesn't mean we don't. I mean, if a client approaches us, obviously we'll evaluate each opportunity. But if we'd be marketing, for example, if I go to events, to trade shows, or if I do an email marketing campaign or anything like that, I would focus on a specific business. So some of the criteria you would take into consideration are the different industries, maybe, the size of the customer, how much revenue they generate, or how many employees they have. That could be something that could be relevant, how many employees they have in their business. Let's think of other criteria that you would think of. You know, maybe it's the geographic location. Maybe you've decided, you know what, I'm only going to sell to businesses in this region, or only in that region, or only in Ontario, or only across Canada. Whatever it is, you've got to make this decision as a business owner. So all of these things will influence your decision. And remember what I said earlier on is sometimes in the startup phase, this is not that clear, you know, but as your business starts growing and evolving, this becomes more and more important because you want to focus on that 20% of your customers that help you generate 80% of your revenue. So go through it. Maybe the title, the decision maker is important. For example, in our case, in the content side of our business is we deal with marketing people. So people that are involved in the marketing to small businesses are the people we want to meet with. We don't want to meet with other people. They're not important to us. That's the starting point, okay? And then key influences in the decision process. So this typically happens. Let me use the example of a bank. So if we're doing content for banks, and we've done a lot of content over the years for banks, what we do is I would meet somebody from a local bank and they would introduce me to somebody in marketing. So they'd introduce me to somebody in marketing. and then that's how we build a relationship. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I say key influencers. Just think of it, if you're selling to households, that's quite an important thing, because let's say the people are involved in a relationship. Ideally, you want both people to be there to make the decision, because often, not always, but often one person will say, well, I need to speak to my partner to make a decision. So these are some of the things you need to think about, even when you're selling business to consumer. But when it comes to business, I want you to think about this process. And I really want you to understand this, because I believe this is the key to building a successful small business, is those of us that specialize are the ones that really thrive. Maybe not always in the startup phase, but as we start scaling. The other thing you want to try and find out, which can be really helpful, is where do your customers spend time? Do they spend time on Facebook? Do they spend time on Instagram? Do they spend time on LinkedIn? I was doing a webinar yesterday morning on the power of LinkedIn. Very, very effective for especially business to business. Are there newspapers maybe that they read, local magazines that target the industry specifically? And these are some of the type of things you want to look at. And they're not simple answers, but they're worth doing research on. What websites do they visit? What networking events? I know in the case of my business, and I'm not sure about your business, but in the case of my business, a lot of my business comes from networking events. I'll be at a conference or a trade show, I'll meet somebody and they'll say, what do you do? And then I give them an idea of the services that we offer, and that's how we build a relationship. And for some of you, that's the only marketing thing you need to do. It doesn't matter that I'm going to teach you how to use social media and how to use email marketing and all that type of stuff. The key is to find what works for you. And if networking works for you, you network. That's what you do. So understand the value of every business being different and doing what works for you. One of the biggest challenges, and a question that all of us should ask ourselves regularly, is why should people buy from us? Just think of it. If I'm in a landscaping business, well, there's a whole lot of other landscapers. If I'm in the training business, well, there's a whole lot of other trainers. If whatever business I am in, there are a lot of people that do the same thing. So when it comes to deciding between company 1, company 2, and company 3, I've got to look for that differentiator. And sometimes it's just because you're nice. I know I like buying from nice people. It sounds very, very simplistic, but many times over the years, I have made a decision to buy from somebody because they're nice people. They employ nice people, they're responsive, they treat people well, all those type of things. But for some of you, there may not be enough. So what I'm going to try and do is to try and identify what makes people rather buy from somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So if I have 2 options, why would I buy from this company rather than that company? So let's think about some of the things that influence people's decisions. Services and products that save us time. Just think of how many times we justify these things. Actually, I would like you to think about this as a business owner on a daily basis. On a daily basis, because you have a whole lot of options. You have a whole lot of options where you buy your coffee, where you buy your groceries, where you put in your gas, who does your garden services, who paints your home, where you buy clothing from, whatever it is. Think of why do you do it? Why do you buy from them specifically? And sometimes, and maybe quite often, it'll be price related. But most times, it's not only the price. Sometimes we buy services because they save us time. I think of the massive growth over the last 5 years of these meals where they send you all the ingredients in a box and then you have to cook it yourself. I mean, some of our grandparents would really be horrified if they had to see what we do when it comes to eating nowadays. But why do we do it? Because it saves us time. I don't do it, just in case you need to know. But not that I even know how to cook really well, but it saves us time. That's why we do it. And we will justify paying for convenience. And this is a very, very common thing nowadays. Just think of it. When we use transport, when, we use things because they save us time. The second one is because it makes us look beautiful. I mean, every day, I don't watch much TV, but when I do, every day I will see some product, something that makes you look younger, something that makes you look fitter, something that makes you look whatever. And people want to look beautiful. That's what they want. I don't know why. It obviously doesn't work for me. If any of you have seen me on camera, and that's one of the reasons I keep the camera off, because I scare some people. But the reality is that is a business. That is a business, making people look better, maybe making people look healthier. So if you do that, sell that. Just say to people, we're going to make you look healthier. We're going to build up your confidence. All of those type of things are key things that customers want. That is the value that we're looking for. That is the benefit of some of your services. Things that simplify our life. There are so many different things that we use. Think of some of the software that you use in your business. Think of some of the hardware you've bought and you justify it. And especially if you pay a little bit extra for it. I find those are my favorite products or services where we justify it. So things that simplify your life, where they cut up the vegetables for you. Go into the supermarket and you can buy carrots for $2. No, but they'll cut it up for you, or they'll slice it for you, or they'll whatever, do it for you. And you justify it by saying, well, I just pop it in the oven, or I just put it in the pot and things like that. And this is exactly one of the benefits. Things that make money. I mean, that is one of our key things in our business, is that if you learn how to run, and maybe I even said this on Tuesday, if you create a great business plan and learn how to run a business more effectively, you'll probably make more money. It's really quite simple. And as a business owner, you've got to understand that for some of us, that is exactly what motivates us to buy different products or services. I know, for example, we use email software. And the reason is because it helps us make more money. It's really quite simple. And that's the way we justify using a product or service. And you've got to understand that the customer feels more comfortable when they can justify something. The customer feels more comfortable when they can justify a purchase. And you've heard all people talk about this. They'll say it's expensive, but it's worth it. And that's really the key. Reduces risk. Think of it. A lot of us buy insurance. A lot of us do that. We buy insurance, and the reason we buy insurance is because it reduces our risk. It reduces our risk, and that's something you've got to sell. Think of it. I mean, one of the examples I can think of off the top of my head is this ring that a lot of us have on our front door. I mean, we live in Canada, one of the safest countries in the world, but we will justify having that ring on our front door. People say things like, I feel safer, I feel more secure. It always fascinates me. I mean, I was listening to somebody last week saying, for security purposes, they want to put cameras right around their house. And I thought to myself, this is Canada. But you know what? It doesn't matter. They will justify it. And if you sell these services, that is exactly what you will say. It'll give you a bit of security when your family's at home, all these things that we look for when we buy cameras, when we buy rings, when we buy insurance, when we buy cars that they promote as being safer, all of these things. Things that organize our life. One of my absolute favorite examples is that woman that teaches people how to organize their lives. And I'm sure all of you've heard about her. And if you haven't, that's okay. All she does is go into people's houses. She helps them organize it, and she makes millions of dollars. So She helps untidy people, lazy people like me, organize their places. I've never used their services, so I'm not the ideal client. But there's an example. I believe there is a niche for everybody. People want these services, and this is why that woman has been so successful. I saw on Netflix the other day, she's got 2 shows. I'm thinking, how does somebody go into people's homes, organize their homes, and have 2 shows on Netflix? Anyway, so those are just my thoughts. You don't have to agree with me, which is really important. Things that reduce effort. Some people will say this, and we actually say this to our clients sometimes. We'll say, don't worry, we'll come in, we'll do the training for you, and you take all that credit. And that is exactly what customers want. And actually, it is one of the ways that we've grown our business. We offer a turnkey service. People say to us, we want to create a 2-hour, 3-hour, or 4-hour online training program. We say, no problem. We will create the content, we'll record it for you, we'll edit for you, and we'll make it look good. So there's an example of doing it. And I want you just to think about your business. So as I'm going through this exercise and you're watching this slide, what I want you to do is to just write down a couple of ideas. And if you don't do it now, you can do it afterwards, because remember, we record all these webinars, so you can go through it afterwards and just think of these things. And I want you to do that. I want you over the next day or two, and even this weekend, thinking about what value and benefits do we offer clients. Services that reduce cost. I mean, anything that we buy. I know in our case, especially over the last 2 years that we've been going through COVID, I've reduced a lot of my costs. Why? Because I think it's very, very important going forward. If I want to build a successful business, I've got to make sure that I control my fixed expenses. Business like Prestige, for example. The credit card companies do this really, really well. You have a silver card, gold card, and then a platinum card. That is the premium of premium. So again, they've realized the value when it comes to marketing of Prestige. Or if you drive a fancy car, any one of you on this webinar, you will justify it. You'll say to me, oh no, but it's expensive, but it is worth it. When people say that, that is great marketing. And I think that is the key. Great marketing is when people say it's a little bit expensive, but it is worth it. So that Prestige, only 10 people have this, only 50. We only take 5 new clients. I mean, how many times? I know this has happened to you often, but I know it happened to me early on in my business where I went to get insurance and they said, no, we're not taking on any more clients. I thought, well, geez, I've never heard of that before. But again, it was that exclusiveness. We don't take on everybody. I mean, a massive trend. Any one of you on this webinar that sells any services that are wellness related, that has been a massive growth. And I don't think it's going to change. I believe that's going to keep growing, actually, because everybody's interested in it. It doesn't matter who it is, young, old, small, big, medium, large, everybody's interested in wellness. I mean, a lot of people are now eating vegan food. A lot of people are focusing on knowing where their food comes from. All of those things are massive trends. So if your business does that, speak about it, because people want that. Fun and entertainment. And I think going forward, this is going to become even more important. I really believe this because of this really stressful 2 years that we've been going through. Sometimes I even reflect on this and I think, really, this is 2 years and it hasn't ended and we don't know. I saw a bit of good news this morning, which really picking at straws, where they said, that the numbers globally are coming down. So that if there's any positive news, geez, that is a little bit of positive news. And then other things like rewards and badges. One of my favorite examples, maybe not the best for small business, but one of my favorite examples is the Fitbit, that you see lots of people, and a lot of them not even fit, but the marketing there is absolutely brilliant. Why? Because when you've done a certain amount of steps, maybe 3,000 or 5,000, whatever it is, it vibrates and almost gives you a reward. It says, congratulations. And you've heard people walking around saying, no, I do 5,000 steps a day, or I do 10,000 steps a day. It is a really clever strategy. Well, let's go back to that McDonald's example again. If any of you have kids or grandchildren, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Is they know what they want. Doesn't matter how old they are. They're 2 years old, 3 years old. They want McDonald's because they're going to get that toy. It's not really about the food. And then design, it could be another thing. So what I want you to do, and this is really key part of building a successful business, is work on this. And I know it's hard. Watch what other companies are doing. When you're watching a bit of TV or listening to radio ads or whatever it is, listen to some of the words that they are using. So now you're ready to create a value proposition. What does that even mean? What specialized knowledge and experience do you have that your competitors don't? And I think that is something that could be your competitive advantage. I know, for example, in our case, I have been training this same program for 25 years. And when I say that, people think, oh, okay, so he must know what he's doing. I mean, other people think, wow, this guy's old as hell. But most people think, oh, so he's been doing this for a long time. He has the experience, he has the knowledge and things like that. So when when somebody competes against us on a project, that is something that we can say. We've published 2 books, worked in 22 different countries, all these type of things. Actually, yesterday I realized it's 23, but I've been saying 22 for so long that I repeat it, and it doesn't really matter. But the point is what I want you to understand. What do you do that is measurably better? And again, this is a very, very good strategy. If you can say, for example, that if you use our product or service, it's going to save you $500, or it's going to save you 30 hours a year, or it's going to save you from doing this or whatever it is. But if you can actually calculate, specifically in dollar amounts, people like that, or you've heard these ads on TV for only $2 a day, you can save this or save that or whatever it is. Those are the type of things I'm referring to, where you simplify it for the client. You say, you know what, this is how much it costs, and then you can get these results. Or if you use our service, you will save this much, or you'll save this much time. Those are the type of things that you want to be doing. How will your product or service save your customers money? That's something else that you could think of. It could be your competitive advantage. And you want to think about these. And tell your customers what problem your product or service solves. And you've heard people, and I said this on the first day, on Tuesday, I said that customers come to you to solve a problem. That's what customers come to you for. And because customers come to you to solve a problem, you want to identify that. You want to say, when you have this problem, you come to us. When you have this challenge, you come to us, is what you want them to do. So here's a couple of really good examples, I think, very, very good examples. And again, these are large companies, but I want to say what I said earlier on. These companies started off as small businesses like yours and I, like you and I. That's how they started off. So the first example here on the top left-hand side, or on my top left-hand side, is Uber. I don't know if any of you have used Uber anywhere in the world, but the one thing I have realized is that it's very, very convenient. When you're in Lisbon or Moscow, one of those cities, and you are not sure how to get to the airport, that's when you really appreciate Uber. That's the first thing. The second thing that they've perfected, and doesn't matter whether you like this company or not, that's not the point. The second thing that they've perfected is that you get an invoice. Because for me, as a business person that travels regularly, this used to be a big problem. I'd go to Montreal, I'd get into a cab. When I got out of the cab, I'd ask the cab driver for an invoice. Oh my gosh. And sometimes they did, and other times they didn't. And then they accepted credit cards and they didn't. and then some of them was cash only, whatever it is. And these are some of the challenges you have when it comes to transport. So Uber solved that very simple problem with an app. Then Shopify, and a great Canadian example, I think, something that a lot of people in Canada are very proud of is what Shopify's done. I mean, they're number one in the industry globally. And why have they become number one? Well, they make it very easy for any one of you or I, to get onto Shopify this afternoon. We could go online this afternoon and we could be selling our products or services immediately. So that is their claim to fame. That is what they do really well. So I want you to think of some of these examples and say, how can I try and do the same thing? How can I make it easy? How can I make it simpler? How can I make it more convenient? And because I do that, I will be able to scale. Or another one is Airbnb. I don't know if anybody has ever tried and put one of their properties on Airbnb, and I recommend you try this. No, maybe not. But if you do try it, you'll see it's very, very simple. It's easy to do it, and that's why it works. And that's why it's grown so phenomenally globally and is now listed on the stock exchange because of the simplicity of it. A great company, great people running it, all those type of things. How do I know that it's great people running it? Because they've told their story, which is another very, very important thing as a small business owner, is that you can tell your story. So one of the things I encourage you to do, and I mentioned this earlier on, but it's worth repeating, is that you want to think about what products or services do you like and why, and then try and emulate some of the things that they're doing. All right, so here's a test that I recommend all of you do. All of you think about this. You don't have to do it now. You can do it later today or tomorrow or over the weekend. The test you want to work out is, what do I offer? You want to come up with a very, very simple, easy to understand, for me, not for you, if I'm your customer, easy to understand, that explains exactly what you do. And I find that sometimes we get tongue-tied. That's what we do. Somebody says, what do you do? Here's the lesson I've heard, is that I've learned, is that sometimes you tailor make your introduction to the person. So you say to them, if I met you and you're a small business owner and you say to me, Andrew, what do you do? I'd say, I run this course that teaches you the steps you need to take to build a successful business. That's what I would say to you, okay? If you were a corporation, for example, or an organization that wanted me to create online content, I would say we create online learning content for companies that target small business owners. For example, we created the content for Digital Main Street. So there's an example of how you explain what you do to different audiences. And in my case, we've got two different audiences, the small business owner. So understand that some of you may have two different target markets. How will it make my life better? So if somebody says, for example, for our course, how will it make my life better? I'll say, well, you'll learn how to build a more profitable business. We'll give you all the tools and the tips you need to build a more profitable business. And that's how it's going to make your life better. If it's a corporate client, they'll say, how will it make my life better? Well, we'll manage it from the beginning to the end. You don't have to do anything. We'll come up with the ideas, which you'll approve. We'll create the content. We'll record the content. We'll edit it. And we'll give it you in a format that you can load onto your platform, whatever the platform is. And that's the way you differentiate yourself. The other thing is, what do I need to do to buy it? Or where do I pay? In this case, very often nowadays, people say, well, you can come into our store, or you can go to our website, or you can text us, or whatever it is, but you make it really, really easy for people to do this. So understand the value of it. Now, earlier on, I said to you that if you're a retail business or if you're a service business, you need to allocate money and time for marketing. So let me give you an idea of the average. For the average retail business, it will be 3 to 5% of their sales. So let's use an example. Let's say I'm a retail business and I do $100,000 of revenue a year. I would spend between $3,000 and $5,000 a year on marketing my business. Okay, so that gives you an idea. If you're a service business, it'll be a little bit higher. And why would it be a little bit higher? Because your profit is higher. Okay, and also, I think service businesses are sometimes a little bit more difficult to market. You sometimes have to spend more time doing things. You have to, network more, all those type of things. And also the revenue is often lower in a service business compared to a retail business. So let's say my service business makes $60,000 a year. I would spend between $6,000 and $12,000 a year on marketing. I prefer this number here, 10%, closer to 10%. I think that is more realistic. Here's another thing that I've learned as a business owner is that once people trust you, and that is the key, I really believe this is the key. Once people trust you, they will buy from you. And you've got to understand the value of this. Is one of your objectives as a business owner is to build trust. And I see it with a lot of businesses. In the beginning, they struggle a little bit to convince a customer to buy. But once they get to that stage where they've worked with you a few times, they start trusting you, it makes the whole sale easier. I know for us, for example, we do content for some organizations like Digital Main Street. In the beginning, there was a lot of follow-up, have you done this, whatever it is. Now, when they ask us to do a project, we just give them the proposal, they agree on the price, and then we hand through the content when it's complete. No meetings along the way. You know what? That's what we call trust. Did it start like that? Absolutely not. Did it develop over time? Absolutely. So I believe that the key to small business success is building trust. Once people trust you, they will buy from you. Also, they'll refer you to their friends, which is exactly what you want to do. I mean, I know I'm like this, is that if I trust you, I may refer you. But if I don't trust you, there's no way, because that's going to have an impact on my reputation. And they'll trust that you are charging a fair price. And this is the key thing. I often work with people in the service business, and they'll say to me, the customer, even happens in our business, the customer will say, well, you know what, we can't afford that. And then you've got to be quite firm, which is very, very difficult, because often you want to do the work. But here's the lesson I've learned, is that when you discount, you don't have that same energy, that same drive, that same motivation to do the work. And maybe that's just me, but I always say the price is the price. And that's how I feel as a business owner. Not everybody agrees with me, but that's what I say. The other thing that I think is very, very important is your story. And this is what I want you to understand. And we've seen this over the last, especially over the last 2 years, during COVID. Everybody's been speaking a lot about small business. I mean, just think of it, every day, just about, on TV, on radio, people have said, something about small business, the impact that COVID has had on small business and things like that. And this is really, really important that you understand this, is that I believe this has been very, very good. The pandemic's been horrible, but it's been very, very good for the brand small business, because they've realized how important we are for main streets across Canada. We are very, very important. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that you've got to understand that the one thing that small businesses have that large companies, doesn't matter what they proclaim and whatever it is on the ads, is that relationship. So understand this. So a very important part of your business nowadays, if you have a website, which all of us should have, maybe not in the startup phase, but as soon as we can, is our story. It is a very, very powerful thing. I like to buy from small businesses if I know their story. So for example, last night I was watching Shark Tank, and a great thing, if any of you want to get inspired, I think Dragon's Den and Shark Tank is two great shows. And I mean, think of Dragon's Den. It's been going around for, I think, over 10 years, one of the most successful shows ever on CBC. Why? Because it inspires people. But what often motivates the investors are people's stories. So yesterday, there was an example of two young women. Their father was Vietnamese, came across to the US with the people on boats and things like that. And you could just see that emotion in these two women's voices of how they've struggled to build their business. And you've got to understand people want to know that. So on the left-hand side here, I've got an example of a company, some of you maybe have heard of them, called Genuine Tea. And these two young people were on the starter company training program that I ran. And I remember their story very, very clearly about how they traveled to the East and they visited these tea farms and selected their teas specifically. And you can see, for example, this is a video. Let me just say something to you. If you can tell your story well, whether it's in video format or whatever it is, it's a really good idea to put on your website. And it doesn't have to be video, it can be written, but it's a very good idea to put on your website because we want to buy from people we know, like, and trust. That's what we want to do. We want to buy from people that we know, like, and trust. And if we understand their story, it influences our decisions more. The second one here is a great example. It's called Fungi Connection. A great young woman that I met that actually not so young, but her story is just wonderful. She's from the US, had a really big issue with cancer, struggled for many, many years, decided to move to Canada, obviously the best country in the world, decided to move to Canada. And maybe some of you know this area. Actually, it's called Wolfe Island near Kingston, Ontario, wonderful part of the province. And she moved there and started a mushroom farm. And basically what they do is they sell mushroom kits right across Canada, which become very, very popular. I mean, I know so many people that have been growing their own mushrooms, especially through COVID. But here is the story, how did we come up with this idea? What motivated us? All those type of things are very, very important.